All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is our monthly new partner introduction webinar. So this is something that we have put together. Um, for those of you that are new to Zyxel, we've got something like over 300 SKUs before we even throw in the service provider SKUs. So we found that a lot of new partners tend to either be overwhelmed by the number of product offerings we have or just unaware of everything that we do offer. So this was put together to help those out. Of course, if you're an old-time VAR and you're just looking for a refresh on our products, or maybe you sell one of our product lines but not some of the others, welcome you to today's webinar as well. So we'll start off with a little background on who Zyxel is. I'm fully aware of the fact we are not a household name, despite the fact that we've been doing this for over 35 years here in North America. So we got founded all the way back in 1989, and I believe we opened up our US office in either 89 or 90. So we've been at this for a very long time. And part of the reason you may not have heard of us or may not be that familiar with us is in the US, at least, our focus has primarily been on the service provider market, selling modems in the early days and then moving forward to CPE and other accessories and things aimed at the ISP space. Whereas in other parts of the world, there was much more focus put on the channel business, switches, access points, things like that, than have ever gotten traction here. So our US office is located in Anaheim, California. That's where I'm at right now. That's also where our warehouse is, our marketing team is, our sales team, and that's where our tech support's done. So if you call in and you need to get some tech support done, you are talking to a Zyxel employee based out of our Anaheim building here. Um, so we do not farm it out to third-party overseas call centers. You are dealing with a Zyxel employee. Now, if you call it off hours, so when we're not open here in the US, I believe in the morning you get routed over to our German office. So again, that is employees. It's just based out of our German office. And I think there's also some after-hour support that's provided by our team based out of our headquarters in Taiwan. So we are a global company. And about 70% of our budget goes into R&D. Our headquarters is based out of Hsinchu, Taiwan. So that is where we are located. My office here in Anaheim, we deal with North America. So for us, we consider North America, Canada, and the US. We used to also cover Mexico, but we have since passed Mexico management off to our Central American office in Guatemala. Largely, I think, just due to the language issues. Since they're already dealing with a number of countries that speak Spanish, it was easier for them to take over Mexico than to duplicate some of those efforts here in the North American office. So Zyxel is part of the Zyxel group. We've got a number of different sister companies. I wanted to highlight a couple of them here for you. This is not all of them. This is just a few. But one of the main things I want to highlight here is the difference between Zyxel Networks and Zyxel Communications. So this is an area that causes some confusion. Basically, under the Zyxel group, there are these two other Zyxels. Zyxel Networks is who I work for, and we handle channel products. So by channel, we mean things that are used by VARs, system integrators, MSPs. So primarily switches, access points, security hardware, etc. Our sister company is Zyxel Communications. Now, we all used to be one happy company, and then a few years ago, we got split off into two separate companies. And the idea behind that was to allow us to focus on growing the channel brand, especially here in North America, where we haven't had much market penetration, and then allow the Zyxel communication guys to focus on their service provider customers and the CPE equipment. Now, one of the challenges we run into here is obviously there is some overlap on those products. Some of you out there are also doing ISP type services and need CPE. Some of the ISPs out there need switches and access points and provide managed services and things like that. So there is overlap, and occasionally that does cause some confusion, especially when it comes to trade shows and things like that. You may attend a trade show, run across somebody who's from Zyxel Communications, and be confused why they don't know about our switches or our latest access points and things like that, and vice versa. So just be aware of that. We do have those two companies going here with very, very similar names and logos. Now the good news is we can cross sell. So if there's something that the Zyxel communication teams offers, chances are we can get that for you over here on the Zyxel network side. So that way you're not having to deal with two different Zyxels. And then the other one I wanted to highlight here is Mitristar. So Mitristar is our manufacturing sister company. They don't manufacture all of our product, but they do manage a lot of our product. And they manufacture most of the channel product that is built in Taiwan. So as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, the current administration here in the US has been implementing a lot of different tariffs on different countries, and it's been sort of a back and forth. Um, so we have been in the process of trying to move much of our manufacturing, at least for the North American market, out of China and into other regions. So a lot of that has either been moved or is in the process of moving to Mitristar in our Taiwanese facilities. I also think on the business switch side of things, a lot of that is also being moved over to Thailand as well. So just be aware of that. We are moving our most of our products from Chinese production over to either Taiwan or Thailand production. So just to sort of summarize that for you, ISP type stuff handled by Zyxel Communications primarily. Zyxel Networks handles all the business type stuff here. So, our focus when it comes to Zyxel networking is three tiers: quality, affordable, and trying to stay on the advanced edge of technology. On the advanced side of things, we were the first, I believe, to ship a SMB Wi-Fi 7 access point several years ago. That was ready to go. We had some of our competitors announced before us, but I believe our product was the first to actually be something you could buy here in North America, not just globally. We were also one of the first vendors to offer AI sandboxing on our security appliances to provide coverage for zero-day exploits, etc. So that's it as far as just sort of a general background on who Zyxel or Zyxel Networks is. And now we'll start talking about the hardware and other options here that we have. And we're going to start by talking about Nebula, because Nebula is a product that these days touches basically everything we sell. Just about everything we sell now is integrated into Nebula. So let's talk about Nebula. This is going to be much shorter than our normal introduction to Nebula slide. So if you're looking for a little bit more, we do have an introduction to Nebula that we do just about every month. And then every other month, I also do a webinar where we do sort of a tips and tricks and best practices presentation for using Nebula for those of you that are a little bit more advanced and looking for a little bit more help. So anyways, Nebula is a cloud management platform that touches our switches, access points, security gateways, and even our LTE router, providing management through that. We are in the process here soon of launching our point to multi-point outdoor system that will also be managed through Nebula. So it gives you a single pane of glass to manage all of your customers and all of their Zyxel devices. And we were the first guys to launch a cloud management platform aimed at the SMB. We launched Nebula all the way back in 2016. So we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. Um, so we have been doing this for a long time. And basically, when we launched, um, almost nobody was doing the SMB space as far as cloud management goes. It was pretty much an enterprise-based type solution with enterprise-based prices to support it. Or they were doing Wi-Fi access points and only Wi-Fi access points. So we saw what was going on and said, you know what, this would be great for our MSP customers, for our customers targeting SMB, etc. And that's what we did. We built our own platform for providing that sort of Meraki type management experience, but without those Meraki type prices. So these days we've got over 150 devices that are can be managed through Nebula, and it continues to grow. Now, Nebula itself provides, like I said, a single pane of glass for managing all of your customers, all of their devices. There's nothing extra you need to use Nebula. You don't have to buy any extra software. There's no extra hardware you need to buy. There's no machine or software that needs to be installed on a computer or server somewhere. The agent to use Nebula is built into our hardware itself. And we maintain and run the Nebula cloud portion of the services. Our system is hosted by Amazon AWS, and we use industry standard technology to handle the encryption and protection of the management data that goes between our devices and the Nebula cloud. Nebula is great because all of our devices these days can be managed your traditional standalone way or can be managed in Nebula. And you don't have to, if you're going to be using Nebula, you don't have to do anything with the device itself. You simply scan it in on the mobile app. assign it to one of your customers and one of their sites, and the device will automatically put itself into cloud management mode. So you don't have to log in and point it to the cloud or point it to a server or toggle something in the GUI. It's just done automatically for you there. Nebula was built from the ground up with the idea that you've got probably multiple customers and your customers may have multiple sites. So we've made it really simple and easy to jump from customer to customer, from site to site in the Nebula interface. So using Nebula is a extremely easy process. So at any point, you can log into nebula.zyxel.com, log in, create what we call an organization. So you'll generally have at least one organization per customer, and then you'll put your customers' sites under that organization. So you'll set that up. You can do some basic configuration out of the get-go. Once you get your Zyxel hardware, you scan the QR code that can be found on the outside of the box or on the belly label of the product, and assign the device to a customer and site. From that point on, you can do full configuration. So you can configure your switches, you can configure your access points without ever needing to take them out of the box. You just scan that QR code on the outside and do your configuration there. Once you plug in your Zyxel device, as long as it's got power and an IP address, it will automatically reach out to the cloud. It will see you want to manage it in the cloud, and it will put itself into cloud mode automatically. And that's it. You're done. So Nebula management is done through a web browser. Now, we do offer a mobile app. It is specifically designed for phones, not for tablets. And it's not really a tool for being your primary form of management, right? We are doing full on business networks here, and there's just too many options, settings, and things to be manageable through a phone based app. The phone app itself, though, is going to give you the ability to get alerts when devices go offline, to allow you to configure some basic information about your customer sites, about their customers' Wi-Fi and stuff. But more importantly, this is the tool that you'll be using for your installers. This is the tool you can use to scan those QR codes to assign devices to your customer sites. You can also use this here to take photographs of the device and document where those devices were installed. So that way, if somebody else has to go on site in the future, it makes it easier for them to find where that device was installed. So again, just to highlight here, there's no additional software or hardware required to use Nebula. Now, these days we have what we call Nebula Flex. I do want to talk about that briefly, and that just has to deal with the fact that our hardware can be used in your traditional direct manage mode, where you manage them through web GUI or through a command line interface with SSH, or you can use Nebula Flex mode. So there are two different modes. So when you put by default, all devices will be in standalone mode. But again, if you want to manage them in Nebula, you just scan that QR code. Once you've done that and assigned the device to a site, that device will automatically detect you want to use it in cloud mode and will automatically reboot into cloud management mode and download its configuration from the cloud. If at any point you want to put it back into standalone mode, you simply log into Nebula, remove the device from your Nebula inventory, and the device will automatically reboot into standalone mode with a default configuration. Now, Nebula is free. And this is not one of those things where free has a bunch of severe limitations on you. So with the free version of Nebula, you get access to the devices, all the core management features you need to set up and configure your devices. There are a couple products where there's some extra features that require a optional license, but the free version gives you access to the full general, functionality you would expect to have. And there are no limits to the number of customers you can manage in the free version of Nebula. There's no limit to the number of sites you can manage in the free version of Nebula, and there are no limitations to the number of devices you can manage in Nebula. I know, a few years ago, everybody had a free tier, and most of those have gone away. And those that do still offer some sort of free management tier, those tiers are usually limited to a very limited number of devices or sites. So we don't do that here. Now, we do have a couple other options here. We have a Plus Pack and Pro Pack licensing. So these are licenses that you do on a per org basis to convert the org from the free base version of Nebula to the Plus or Pro Pack, where you can buy licenses for them. And it unlocks additional features primarily aimed at those of you that are MSPs and are looking to store more log information in the cloud and who want to take advantage of some of our AI tools to do automatic network management for you. And then we offer what's called an MSP pack, and the MSP pack is a license for you for those of you with a lot of customers, it just makes it easier to manage a large number of admin accounts and a large number of customers and sites. And these are available as a free trial, so you can test it out before you commit to buying any of it. So just to hit all of our products here, you will see on the top row here, these are our Nebula Flex products, and you will see here on the bottom products labeled Nebula Flex Pro. So let's talk about the differences between Nebula Flex and Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex just means the device can be used again as traditional management or in the cloud. Nebula Flex Pro is the same thing, only it also adds a 1-year Pro Pack license, which comes bundled with the device. So if you buy a Nebula Flex Pro product, it's already got a 1-year Pro Pack license bundled with it. So when it comes to our access points, it's really easy. Anything that starts with the letter N, so any of our NWA series access points, those are Nebula Flex. Anything that starts with the letter W is Nebula Flex Pro. On the switches, basically anything that's part of our 1900 series, so anything that starts with the 19 digit, that's Nebula Flex. And then basically anything 2000, 3000, that's Nebula Flex Pro. And then the one oddity we have here is our GS 1350 series switches. So these are switches that were put together specifically for those of you doing a lot of IP security cameras. And there are some extra features when it comes to monitoring and automating some of the management of those connected devices that do require the Pro Pack. So that for that reason, the 1350 series is a Nebula Flex Pro device. And then when it comes to our security appliances, basically anything that's sold as a standalone device is Nebula Flex. Anything that comes bundled with a UTM package or a gold license package also includes 1 year of Nebula. And just to highlight here, in addition to direct management, in addition to doing cloud management, for those of you that don't want to do the cloud, we do have some extra tools here to make it easier for you to do some other stuff. So one of the main ones here when it comes to on-premise is the fact that our security appliances, the USG Flex series, has a built-in wireless LAN controller. So if you're looking for managed access points, but you don't want to use the cloud, you can absolutely do it this way. And then we've also got some software out there that makes managing our other devices a little bit simpler for you. And with that, we'll start talking about our wireless access points. Basically, we break up our access points into 3 categories here in North America: simplicity, flexibility, and ultimate. And simplicity is basically our Soho class devices. So these are our NWA series 50 and 90 series. So the 50 series is missing features like there's no captive portal, there's no WPA enterprise. It's really aimed at that home user. And then the 90 series is a Soho, so it adds some captive portal, it adds more encryption, or it adds that WPA3 enterprise support. But it's still missing some features that you find in our higher end access points, such as they can't do load balancing. And then that Simplicity series is also a 2-year warranty, where all of our other access points have a lifetime warranty. So the next step up from the Simplicity series is Flexibility series, and these are the NWA series that are at least 100. So something like an NWA 110BE, NWA 210BE, etc. So these will be our true business class access points. They come with a lifetime warranty, and they've got access to all of those features you're looking for in the Nebula interface. And the next step up from that is our Ultimate series. So those are our access points that start with the letter W. So these models here, the main differentiators between these and our NWA 100 and 200 series is, as we mentioned on a couple slides ago, these do come bundled with a Pro Pack license. These are also models that can be managed with the wireless LAN controller. So if you're looking for a local wireless LAN controller management, you do need to go up to the W series. And then also the W series is where we have some of our advanced antenna technology. So let's talk a little bit about that. So most vendors out there basically just have a standard static antenna. So whether you're buying Ubiquiti, Netgear, Cisco, HP, or Aruba, those all just have a standard access point or standardized omnidirectional antenna built into the access points themselves. It's optimized with the idea that you're mounting this on the ceiling, and it's designed to cover the area underneath the access point. So we've got some other technologies that some of our devices offer. The first one is dual optimized. So in dual optimized devices, we have one set of antennas that's optimized for the ceiling, like your traditional access point. And then we've got another set of antennas that are optimized for wall placement, because oftentimes you end up mounting these on the wall at 90 degrees. And then we've got our smart antenna technologies. So just to show here to illustrate dual optimized, normally it's above the ceiling, you mount it on the wall. And when you do that, you end up sending a lot of your signal into the ceiling, a lot of your signal into the floor, and you're not getting that horizontal coverage you would normally expect. And depending on what those floors and ceilings are made out of, you may be just losing a lot of signal, or you may be causing interference between floors. So our solution to this again was we add a second set of antennas that are optimized for wall placement, and we let you choose which one to use. So some of your APs that are mounted on the ceiling, you can select the ceiling antennas. Those units that are mounted on the wall, you can select the wall placement. And I believe we're the only vendor that offers something like this. The other technology we have is our smart antenna technology. For those of you that are familiar or have sold Ruckus, our smart antenna is very similar to their BeamFlex Plus. So a lot of what you've learned about BeamFlex Plus applies to our smart antenna. And basically what the idea behind the smart antenna is, I'm skipping through some of these animations here. Is it going to give me what I want? There we go. Is instead of having a fixed antenna pattern like a ceiling mount antenna or two fixed antenna patterns like our dual optimized APs, this uses what's called an antenna array and has the ability to choose from hundreds of different antenna patterns, and it does it in basically real time. So our algorithm takes a look at two things. The first thing it's looking at is where is the client device in relationship to the access point, and it chooses an antenna array that optimizes the signal to direct it to where that client is. And then the other thing our algorithm does and does very, very well is it looks at other sources of RF interference, whether they be something like a microwave or whether they simply be another access point or another wireless device that's using the same frequency. And it chooses an antenna pattern to ignore that other source of interference. So it doesn't make a lot of difference in a low density environment, but in environments where you've either got a lot of users or you've got a lot of other access points, smart antenna makes a dramatic difference in performance, allowing you to achieve greater than 100% airtime utilization on any particular channel when you've got multiple APs operating on the same channel. So it's really good for those dense environments like classrooms, conference centers, expo centers, things like that, where RF environments are tough. It also works really well in things like warehouses, where the RF environment changes from day to day, minute to minute as things move in and out. Now, all of our access points from the 100 series and up operate with what we call a RF first design. So if you've ever picked up some of our access points and you've picked up our competitors' similar access points, you will notice our access points tend to weigh a lot more. And that comes down to this RF first design, as well as just what we've done to help build up the longevity of our access points, which is why we can offer a lifetime warranty when some of our most best-selling competition only offers a 1 or 2 year warranty. So RF first, you will find we have a lot more shielding on our main PCBA than most of our competitors offer, because not only are we trying to solve EMI issues, we're also trying to filter out interference coming from outside the device itself, such as from 4G and 5G broadcasts. So a lot of people don't realize this, but when it comes to 4G and 5G, they can operate on channels that border traditional Wi-Fi channels, and you do get some bleed over. Now, this isn't going to affect a normal house or a small office. This is specifically for those of you, well, if the broadcast tower is on the roof of the building, it may be issues. This may be a place where this steps in, but usually where we see this working is on larger buildings. So with larger buildings, cellular signal generally doesn't penetrate very far in from outside. So the solution to that is what they call a DAS system, DAS. And what that does is that rebroadcasts the cellular signal inside the building. So you see this being used a lot by larger office buildings, expo centers, but you also see it even in like newer, larger condos and apartment buildings, where they use these DAS systems to rebroadcast cellular signal inside. And so when they're doing that, that can cause interference issues. So our filtering helps solve that. The other thing you will find is we do not put our antennas on the same PCBA as our chips. They are on their own separate board, creating greater isolation and better signal to noise ratio for those antennas. And you will also often find a noise shield underneath that PCBA, creating greater isolation between the two boards. And then when it comes to longevity, we do not use any electrolytic capacitors on our products. We only use solid state capacitors because electrolytic capacitors are prone to failure, especially if your access point doesn't have any heat vent holes on it. And then the other thing we do is we optimized for heat fatigue. So that's another common cause of failure on solid state components. So you will see most of our products will have a copious amount of holes in the bottom board here to allow heat to vent out of the device itself. And many of our products will have a metal heat sink behind the main PCBA to help draw the heat off of the board and vent it out. Moving on from access points to our switches, we've got a lot of switches out there. So I want to talk about our switch naming. You can use our switch naming to quickly sort of figure out what sort of features the switch you're looking at has. So if you know what you're looking for, you can sort of guess what the model name is going to be and quickly be able to find it on our price sheet or catalog. So all of our switches will start with a 2 or 3 letter abbreviation. And that's telling you the speed class of the switch itself. So anything that starts with ES is a 100 meg switch. Our GS switches are our gigabit switches. The MG series, the M stands for multi-gig. So that's telling you that that switch is a multi-gig switch. XGS is telling you it's a gigabit switch. And the X is telling you that there are 10 gig uplink ports on that switch. And then an XMG switch, same thing. The MG tells you it's a multi-gig switch. And the X tells you there are 10 gig uplink ports on it. And then if you see XS, that's telling you that is exclusively a 10 gig switch. All ports are at least 10 gigs on it. You will also sometimes see some letters at the end of the switch names, and that's generally telling you about the PoE capabilities of the switch. HP is telling you that the switch provides either PoE plus or PoE plus plus PoE. EP is telling you it's PoE plus or PoE plus plus, but with a reduced overall power budget, so a smaller power budget. And the idea behind this is to offer the same functionality as a switch that ends in HP, but at a lower price point. Maybe you don't need to power up, 15 devices. You only need to power up 3 or 4. EP model gives you that smaller power budget, allows you to save some money. So you're not paying for PoE power budget you don't need. And then FP is for those of you, especially those of you doing a lot of access points or a lot of IP cameras that need to provide full PoE plus or PoE plus plus across all or most ports. So that's giving you a much larger power budget than the HP version. And then if you see the letter F, that's telling you that is a fiber switch. All ports on the switch are fiber. There are no RJ45 ports on that switch. So again, makes it really easy to find the class of switch. So hey, I need a multi-gig switch and I need 10 gig uplinks. You need an XMG. If you just need gigabit ports, you need a GS series switch. And then the next thing to look at is the model numbers. So we have broken up our switches into a bunch of different families. I'm just going to sort of skim through here on the low end side of things, sort of the SOHO or consumer switches. We have our unmanaged 105 and 108B series. We have our 1000 series unmanaged switches. And then we've got our XMG and MG series multi-gig switches. But where you probably care about is here on the business side of things, these different switches that we have here. So basically everything 1915 and higher is going to support Nebula. So the 1900 series itself does not support Nebula, nor does the 1200 or 1000 series. It's 1915 and up. And then that oddball 1350 series we talked about earlier. So as a general rule, as you go up to bigger numbers from 1915 to 1920 to 1930, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you're going up in software capability on the switch. So basically everything 1900 and higher is web managed or cloud managed. Again, 1900 only web, no cloud, but everything else is either or. And all of these are layer 2 and higher switches. So 1915, et cetera, up would be considered probably layer 2 plus switches. And then we get up here to our 2000 and 3000 series, where we get up to our, layer 3 light and layer 3 switches. And so basically, it's just a feature set. There's no hard, fast rules on what the features are between these different series. So this is one of those things where you may need to talk to your sales guy, Andy, David, or Jacob, letting them know what you're trying to do, and they can let you know, is that something that you can do on the 1915? Do you need it on the 1920, etc. As a general rule, our best-selling switches for gigabit switches are the 1920 series. And then usually the 1930 series is just a XMG or a multi-gig version of the 1920s. So if you need a multi-gig, you go to the 1930s. And then if you're one of those guys that likes a command line interface, you jump up here to our GS2220 series. So these are our layer 2 plus switches. And these are for those of you guys that like to have a command line interface. These all support command line interface, where most of the 1900 series does not have a SSH capability. It is purely web or cloud management. And then as you get up here, you get to your layer 3 and your layer 3 aggregation switches. So again, depending on what you want, you can sort of hopefully narrow it down by looking at the model number series here. So just to sort of summarize the general feature set you can find in our switches, again, everything 1915 and higher is Nebula Flex. So you've got standalone web management or you've got cloud management, and in the 2000 series and higher, you also get access to a command line interface. Huge variety of PoE switches with different power budgets, different configuration of ports. And pretty much everything these days is either PoE plus or PoE plus plus support. And everything here on our switches is kind of key, especially for those of you not using the cloud, is we run our own operating system called Zyxel, which we've been working on for, 15, 20 years. And the reason this is important is that it creates a big difference between us and say Netgear or D-Link or something like that in the SMB space here. Is we're able to have a unified interface, a unified GUI, a unified way of configuring things because it's running our software. Where a lot of our other competition in this lower end SMB space is basically taking the chipset vendor's reference design and just rebranding it with your own brand. So as you jump from one model to another, or you go from a V1 to a V2, oftentimes the features are named differently, the features are configured differently, certain things are missing. So that's something by using Zyxel we get away from, because you're using our operating system. It makes it much, much easier to learn and gives you that unified interface when you're going between different generations and models of switches. And much like our access points, we spend a lot of time and effort on the design of our switches to help make them reliable. Basically, all of our switches these days have a lifetime warranty with them. And you get a number of, similar sort of that RF first design here, designed to help make sure the longevity of the product itself. So one thing we do get a lot of questions on, so I decided to leave this in the presentation, is sort of the differences on what you can get. So generally, if you're trying to provide 10 gig RJ45 connectivity, Cat 5e isn't really good enough for that. You need to go up to at least Cat 6 or Cat 6a, with the main difference between the two being Cat 6 is good at 10 gigabits per second up to about 55 meters, where Cat 6a can provide 10 gigabit support all the way up to 100 meters. And then I did want to talk here a little bit about when it comes to PoE. So when it comes to PoE, there's different standards. There's 802.3 AF, 802.3 AT, and 802.3 BT. So AF is the older standard that provides up to 15 watts of power per port. PoE Plus is also known as 802.3 AT, and it provides 30 watts of power per port. And then modern day stuff is PoE Plus Plus, also known as 802.3 BT, and it can provide up to 60 watts of power per port. Now, most of our switches have a cool smart PoE allocation, which doesn't use the device class to determine how much power to allocate out of the budget. Instead, our switches monitor the PoE power draw of the device that's connected, and only allocate as much power as that device needs to be up and running. So because of that, you can fit more devices on one of our switches with, say, a 300-watt power budget than you can on some of our competitors with that 300-watt power budget, because our smart PoE allocation helps free up that extra unused PoE demand and allow other devices to use it, where the industry standard is to do it by class only, which doesn't give you the flexibility you need. You can see here any class 4 device will automatically get allocated 30 watts of power on most other products, even if it only needs 16 or 17 watts of power. We'll free up that extra power for you. And then lastly, just to highlight here, we do sell our own SFP modules. So if you're looking to do fiber, I highly suggest you do buy our SFP modules to do that. Now, unlike other vendors, we do not lock you down to only our SFP modules. So you can use third-party SFP modules if you'd like. But if you want to guarantee compatibility, stick with ours. And then on a related type of product here, we do also sell PoE injectors. Both of these PoE injectors that we sell are multi-gig. The PoE 12-30W is 30 watts of PoE power and a 2.5 gig multi-gig port. The PoE 12-60 watts is again 60 watts of power, and it provides a 5 gig Ethernet port in and out. So this is really important for those of you that are upgrading to a higher end access point or a higher end IP camera that needs the greater than 30 watts of power. And you only need a few ports and you don't want to have to swap out their existing switches for new switches. You can just buy PoE injectors to provide PoE power for those few ports that need the extra power. And then lastly, here we'll start talking about our security products. So the first product, and it's a relatively new product for us, is the USG Lite 60 AX. So this is a relatively new category for us. It's designed to aim to compete with that lower end security appliance space. So this would be sort of like a Netgear security appliance or the Ubiquiti Dream machines, products that are advertising themselves as a security appliance, but without the high-end UTM and advanced firewall rule type stuff you find on, our USG Flex or a Sonic Wall or Fortinet. So if you're looking for something to compete on that lower end, the USG Lite 60AX is a perfect product. It's got built-in Wi-Fi. It can wirelessly mesh with our wireless access points, and it is fully Nebula manageable. And it does offer subscription-free security services built in. And then on the higher end of things where you would traditionally compete with a Sonic Wall, Fortinet, WatchGuard, etc., we have our USG Flex H series. So that's the products you would look for when you're looking to provide a full UTM service for a customer, where you're trying to provide security in a larger building, where you need more advanced firewall rules, things like that. And as a general rule, as you go through the USG Flex H series from the 50 all the way up to the 700, the primary difference is not software. The software interface and experience is basically unified between all of the Flex H series. The difference is on the hardware capabilities. So basically, as you go up to bigger numbers, you get a more powerful processor, which can support more users, higher throughput, etc. And you'll also find some differences in the hardware configurations on the types of ports. Whether we're how many ports the device has, how many WAN ports, etc. But otherwise, they're basically the same. Now, something we do a little bit differently than a lot of our competition is we don't try to be an all-in-one when it comes to the security side of things. A lot of vendors in this space, you're relying on them for the hardware, the software for the user interface, but you're also relying on them to be an antivirus company, to be a UTM threat company, to be a zero-day AI company, to be a content filtering company, etc. And rather than go that route, what we've done instead is when it comes to those UTM services, is we partner with third parties who are already doing a great job in that space. So you can see when it comes to things like content filtering, we use Trellix to provide that content filtering functionality for us. When it comes to intrusion detection and prevention, we use Athena Cloud. When it comes to doing anti-malware and antivirus, we're using Bitdefender and Gen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when it comes to our security products, we do have some optional licenses that are available for you. You can get just a content filtering license. We have our secure Wi-Fi license, which can convert one of our access points into a remote VPN appliance to provide for remote users to make it really easy for them to connect to and get back to their company network, even when they're at home or on the road. Our Connect and Protect licenses, which are available on our access points to provide extra security, sort of like a UTM type filtering of wireless traffic, that's available. And then we have our Gold security license, which provides that full UTM service type security for our USG Flex H series. And you can see most of these licenses, we do have a 30-day trial available. So you can test these out and try them before you need to go out and buy a license to activate them. So none of our hardware is going to require you have a license, just like with Nebula, with the free version, when it comes to our security appliances, you can use them without a license. The license just unlocks additional features for you. So we've got this little comparison here, but it can just show you here, using without any license on our USG Flex H series, you still have access to network address translation. You still have access to stateful packet inspection. You still have blocking of denial of service things. You have access to VPN functionality, um, cloud management, et cetera, et cetera. And then with the licenses, that unlocks those additional UTM type services, things like antivirus, web filtering, anti-spam, um, intrusion detection and protection, prevention, et cetera. And then, so a lot of people aren't aware of this, but there's a lot of optional services and things you can do on our USG Flex H series. We've already obviously talked about some of them in the terms of Nebula management in the terms of the different security licenses, but we also give you access to things like SD-WAN functionality, device high availability, the ability, as we talked about before, to manage and control your access points through the USG Flex H, as well as hotspot features, the ability to do captive portal for wired and wireless users, etc. So there are some optional things that you can activate on our USG Flex H series. So that's it as far as hardware goes. Now we're sort of moving in where we're talking about some of the software and online services that we offer. So just about everything is managed these days using a Zyxel account, formerly known as My Zyxel. So if you're selling our security products, this is where you register the security products. This is where you can manage your licenses, etc. This is also what you would use. You use the account you create on your Zyxel account is also used by Nebula for logging into Nebula. It's used for SecuReporter. It is used for our online payment platform, etc. When it comes to network management, we have Nebula, which we've already talked about. And then we have a thing called Zyxel One Network. So this is a sort of a proprietary level layer 2 protocol we have and some software that works that layer 2 protocol. So if you're not doing cloud management, it gives you some extra options to be able to easily find Zyxel devices on the network and perform some basic management and upgrade features through that software. So the Zyxel One Network Experience is that built-in wireless LAN controller that's built into our security appliances. It's our zone utility software, which can automatically discover all your Zyxel devices on the network and provide you direct links to their web GUI, as well as be able to push out some saved configurations and do some stuff like that. And then Smart Connect, the ability for Zyxel devices to find other Zyxel devices so you can jump from the interface of one to another without having to exit and leave the interface you're currently in. So it's a comprehensive suite of things that you can use to make it easier to manage a network if you're not using the Nebula Cloud. Sort of jumping through that. Another resource that a lot of people aren't aware of is we do have online training and certification available for you. So we have what's called Foundation, which is sort of an introduction, and that is free to use. And it covers a lightly overview of all of our different product lines for you. And then we have a number of other certifications going into more into the configuration and management side of things. You can see the number of different levels here. Now, online, this is something that you will see that there is costs to do the training. do not buy the training online. If you are one of our Zyxel partners, we can give you access to these different training tiers for free. You just need to reach out to your salesperson and they will get you a free certificate to log in to qualify for some of these higher level certification programs, so you don't need to pay. And then when it comes to e-commerce, we have a couple different platforms that are available. So I do want to talk about that. Um, so we do have a Zyxel store. So that is a place where people can go online and buy our products from the Zyxel site. It's, I think, store.zyxel.com. And this is fulfilled by Amazon. So just be aware of that. When you're buying from the Zyxel store, it's actually shipping from Amazon stock. And all the products sold here should be selling at our street price or MSRP. We also sell licenses through Marketplace for end users. So end users can go in and buy licenses through Marketplace. And in the case of Nebula licenses, can push those licenses automatically back into their organization. Now, you are one of our reseller partners, so you probably shouldn't be using the Zyxel store or Marketplace. As a Zyxel partner, you get discounts at our distribution partners. So it should be cheaper for you to buy through one of our distribution partners like D&H or Target than to buy from the Zyxel store. They also have access to SKUs that aren't in the store and the ability to do drop shipping and things like that. And then when it comes to licenses, we have Circle. So Circle is the tool for our partners to use to buy licenses online. So this allows you to buy licenses and get a partner discount. So you're not paying street price for the licenses. It also unlocks some additional tools for you. So you can set up Circle to automatically renew licenses for you. It gives you the ability, instead of having to pay for a year up front, to just automatically charge you every month for a month's worth of utilization of a Nebula or security license. We also have a new thing called Pay As You Go, where you can create an org in Nebula and say, basically, as I add devices to this org, automatically add licenses. So that way, if as long as you've got this org, is you can add as many devices as you want to it. It will automatically add the licenses you need. So you don't have to manually manage and apply those licenses. And then on the reverse side of that, as you remove devices from it that no longer need a Nebula license, it will automatically stop billing you for those devices. And that's all done through a credit card. So it's credit card payment. So just to try to summarize here, if you're looking to buy licenses for your Nebula equipment for your customers, if you'd like to do it online with some automated tools to make it easy, we have Zyxel Circle. These products, these licenses, are also still sold by our distribution partners. And in general, you should get slightly better pricing buying through our distribution partner. So you pay a little bit more and use Circle and get the ease of use and instant license keys. If you don't mind waiting a day or two for the license and want to save some money, and you don't mind applying the licenses yourself, buy through your distribution partner. And with that, guys, that pretty much ends today's webinar. So if you do have any questions, do send them in via the chat or Q&A. And then just to highlight here some other tools while I'm waiting to see if any questions come in. Most of our webinars are recorded and then posted to our YouTube page. Because we are a global company, there's lots of different Zyxel channels on YouTube. So for the North America, for our webinars, it's Zyxel America channel. That's also where you're going to find best practices videos, commercials, video case studies, all sorts of other tools in addition to our webinars. And of course, you can always connect to us on LinkedIn, where we're there as Zyxel US channel. And it does not look like we are getting any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you for joining me every day, everybody. I appreciate you coming out. Hope to see you at one of our future webinars.